I'm going to choose the right thing because I know that the good Lord is with me and He'll be with me by my side.
Amen. Brenda Davis, thank you so much for coming in and chatting with us today. How's it been so far?
The campaign trail is going beautifully. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Absolutely. And I feel, when the voters get a chance to hear from the candidates and maybe get to know them a little bit more, because when you see somebody as just a politician, it's so easy to be disinterested, to, say, well, what does that matter to me?
Right.
And so when the voters get to hear more of the candidates, get to learn a little bit about you, I think that that's going to, one, educate, but also just help them get involved in the race.
Absolutely.
Why does it matter? What does a controller do? What does that matter to me, right? So let's start off. Let's talk about you. Tell me about your background.
Oh, thank you. I'm Brenda Davis, and I am a lifelong resident of Washington County. I'm a graduate of Trinity High School, and after high school, I went on to obtain my bachelor's degree in Public Service Administration and Criminal Justice Administration from Waynesburg College. So after I graduated, I ended up running for office in the city of Washington, and I chose to run for mayor. I sat there for 3 years and watched the functions and the operations of government, and it was extremely frustrating to see the fraud, the waste, and abuse that was going on. So I felt that I was empowered to run to make our community a safer and better place, and that's exactly what I did. So whenever I finished my term as mayor, I decided to go back to college again, but this time I went for my master's degree.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes, because I thought, it's always good to have more tools in your toolbox to further educate yourself and to provide knowledge that you can then put back into your community. So I went to Duquesne University and I received my master's degree in business administration.
Wonderful.
Yes, and I was able to apply that at the county level when I ran for clerk of courts and successfully won as the clerk of courts. So I've had multiple leadership positions within our county, and I want to continue to provide those leadership skills that will further benefit the taxpayers in the county. I've been with my fiance for almost 20 years. I like to say that we're still courting each other. Jimmy D'Alessandro.
Yes.
He was a 43-year county employee. So Jimmy and I have been through quite the political processes over the years. But we both have a passion for a better community and to make life better in our county. So that's a little bit about who I am, and I was raised by a single mother. I'm the youngest of 3 children, and so that's a little bit about me and who I am.
So whenever you decided that you were going to run for mayor, what were you thinking?
Well, the city was a disaster. They had 2 individuals that were competing for the mayorship for 30 years, and it was going back and forth. But they weren't in it for the people, and they weren't in it for the betterment of the community. So after I sat there for 3 years and evaluated all the departments, then I decided, the city needed a new leader. Someone with new change agent ways that could better prosper the city of Washington, because the city of Washington is strapped with nonprofits, hospital, county buildings, the W&J College. So unfortunately, there's just not a tax base there.
Yeah.
So when I was mayor, my leadership skills, I was able to rein in and tighten the belts within all government departments. So we did not have to raise taxes in the city. So I'm very proud that during my term, I'm probably the only mayor that didn't raise taxes during their term, because my 2 previous predecessors have already raised our taxes multiple times. So It shows you that if you put in the hard work and you know how to be a leader and you have unwavering managerial skills,
Yes.
you can really turn an office around
Yeah.
and provide the taxpayers money.
Yeah. I'm sure people are like, Brenda, run again. I
I wasn't sure that I was going to be running, but in the beginning of the year and the circumstances that occurred, and it was brought to me that it was my time to run. And this is what I've been prepared for all of these years, that thankfully the good Lord has identified to me. So when I do go in as the next Washington County Controller, I can hit the ground running. I don't need any education. I will be working right there alongside with the employees. But first and foremost, the morale in the office and the environment in the office needs to improve. Unfortunately, when I was elected as clerk of courts, I walked into an office that my predecessor at the time was pleading guilty to embezzling $100,000. So here we are again, another situation where the controller's office, their leader, pleaded guilty to felony charges. So the morale in the office has unfortunately paid a consequence, and I would like to improve that just as I did when I was the clerk of courts.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about that. When you came in into the clerk of court's office,
How are you? We're here to move.
what was it like in there?
Well, the morale was low. The employees were they went through an investigation because of Frank Scandell, who was the previous clerk before me. And so they needed to know that they could trust the leader. They needed to know that the leader had good, innovative ways to make the department and the office more efficient. So I had to build trust with the employees, but I'd like to point something out, that when I was elected, I never fired anyone. I went in and I assessed the office. Absolutely. Absolutely I did. I assessed the office. There was a vacancy in the office, which afforded me the opportunity to bring a deputy in from the outside. But in my case, I brought someone in that had experience within that office. So she was able to bring her knowledge with her when coming into the office. So after 3 months, I had 3 people abruptly either quit or retire. And that was when I took control of the money and implemented new internal controls within the office to ensure that what happened in the office never happened again.
Wow.
So the bad ones will weed themselves out once the good leader comes in and lets them know we are not going to play the same democratic ideals that they were accustomed to. And for instance, the controller's office has been under Democratic reign for 20 plus years when Mike Namey was there. It's the same office, same employees. That office deserves someone with a conservative, fiscal, managerial, responsible, that can provide ways during the auditing process, new ways of improving efficiency. After 20 years, you become stagnant. You're no longer able to provide those new and innovative ways. So I would like to provide the education, the experience, and the knowledge that that office so desperately needs.
Yeah.
Yes.
So talk to the people, our listeners, just a little bit about that. Because I don't know that everybody understands the way that our county government is set up with the row officers, how they're
Yes.
independent in their offices. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. In 2019, there was a red wave that took over the courthouse and took over the county, and every single office, except for 2, were ran Democratic prior to that.
Okay.
So when we came in, it was Republicans everywhere.
Okay.
And I got to tell you, the 2 that were in charge in the commissioner's office, Democrat Larry Maggi and Democrat Diana Irie, because she certainly had no conservative values that displayed them our way. They had they had pushed home rule charter within the county. They thought, hey, home rule charter, we can now take away the independence of the elected officials and put it under the control of the commissioners. This doing away with transparency with all offices, not affording to have good leadership in these positions. So it was a buddy system that they were trying to create. But in the meantime, they were not happy. The Democrats weren't happy that the Republicans took over. So they immediately started to attack each and every single one of us. It started in the treasurer's office. He couldn't even get through January without being in an HR office in January of 2020. Then they moved on, and by January 15th, we weren't even in office 15 days. The judge put an administrative order down on the pathonetary, the Register of Wills, and the Clerk of Court's office, dictating on how we are to do our jobs. I had no problem with that, because Frank Scandell was my predecessor, as I said. He was kicked out of the office. So the office was already under an administrative order that was exactly the same as the January 15th. So we were already following the order. There was nothing new we needed to do. But it was all part attack. Let's figure out how we can attack these good Republican conservatives to make them look bad. So it was evisceration after evisceration. They eviscerated the Register of Wills. They took the Orphans Court away from the Register of Wills. They went after the Recorder of Deeds. They took the tax claim and tax revenue, and they separated that. That was right before Miss Carrie Perrell took office. So the evisceration was occurring. Now keep in mind, the Clerk of Court's office already had the Auditor General in the office doing an 18-month audit because of the scandal. Wow. They uncovered 34 pages worth of egregious findings and recommendations. The report came back, was not very glowing on the county commissioners, the treasurer's office, and the clerk of courts. So it was my job as the clerk of courts to implement those recommendations. Now I had to do that for the taxpayers, because the Auditor General, when they audit your office, as well as the Controller's office, they're only following the law, the rules, the regulations that have been established long ago.
Yes.
So they're not coming in there and making things up. They're just following the rules, as which us elected officials are supposed to follow the rules.
Absolutely.
But if you've got a couple of commissioners that aren't happy and want more power, then trouble begins. So the Register of Wills had charges against him. The pathonetary's office, even as of last year, is still challenging the courts when they're invading her data and their software. Just this year, I believe, the new president judge put down another order on the Register of Wills. So they're still under attack, and we're in 2025. Now, thankfully, the current commissioners, they're not eviscerating like the previous two that were in control. So I'm happy to see that that they're not doing the home rule charter actions and moves. Yeah. However, I'd like to see them restore the independently elected officials' offices and provide them with the furnishings and the budgetary needs that they need to properly do their job. Because keep in mind, they're elected by the people.
Right. Yeah.
And the county code says that the commissioners need to provide the resources so we could effectively do our job. So when I was clerk of courts, I had the office that had the easiest access to money.
Okay.
And it was blatantly called out in that 34-page egregious report.
Okay.
And they use the word subverting of funds, so I'll use the word subverting of funds. And what it came down to is the clerk of court's office collects fines, fees, and court costs. And that money is immediately remitted to the state. Okay. And the state then divvies up all that money, and different programs such as the victim services, the Victims Compensation Fund. Those are the first two funds that receive money that is remitted to the state.
Okay.
Okay? And then the other counties and state offices, they get a little portion of that money.
Okay.
But unfortunately, the way the structure was set up in the clerk of court's office, the county commissioners were getting money first from all the DUI and the highway safety classes that they were teaching. So the money wasn't going to the victims to the state. So the Auditor General held a conference in downtown Pittsburgh to call the judges out, to call the commissioners out, unbeknownst to me that it was happening. But that report was so egregious that he felt imperative to come to Pittsburgh and do a press release.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And I'm happy to report that during that press release, he gave me accolades for implementing new internal controls within the office to ensure that the theft would never occur again. And he did that knowing that I was going to be getting some backlash from those that were higher up than me that wanted to continue the status quo. So I had to make the difficult decision of, am I going to follow the law, or am I going to follow what the commissioners and the treasurer and the previous clerk of court set up with adult probation? Absolutely not. I took an oath in office that I said I would uphold the Constitution, and that's exactly what I did. Now, unfortunately, because of those actions and wanting to do the right thing, I was targeted even more. I was targeted even more. And before I was done in my 4 years as clerk of courts, I lost track of, there was over at least 15 administrative orders that were put down just on the clerk of court's office. And it was all to try to trip me up.
Wow.
But I have to tell you, when I started at the clerk of court's office, I had 9 employees. And when I left the clerk of court's office, I had 3. My budget was $675,000 in 2020. And when I left, it was $373,000. So when you want to do the right thing, you are punished. But to me, doing the right thing is worth the risk.
So that was Timothy DeFore,
Yes.
correct? Who was coming down and
Yes.
making these recommendations, or,
Absolutely.
from the state.
Absolutely. Yes.
This wasn't, somebody local. I mean,
No, this is the state auditor general is to audit all independently elected offices who remit money to the state,
Okay.
which is why the clerk of court's office fell under a state audit.
Okay.
So they come in with the rules, regulations that have been established by our legislators. So they're only following what the guidelines are in front of them. But if they see someone or some organization that is swaying away from the law, then it is their job to identify it and to come up with the recommendations on how they can reel that organization back in to properly disperse the funds correctly. So they're only following the law, and what they're putting down is the law.
So at that point, you're now faced with a decision. Do I go with what our state...
Do I go along to get along, or do I follow the law to ensure that the clerk of courts never has an audit like that again? Yes, I had to choose the latter. I had to choose to follow the law to ensure that the clerk of court's office never has the theft that occurred prior to me coming into office.
So what happened?
Well, needless to say, there was constant administrative orders trying to trip me up. But we continued to do the work. So what they decided to do was let me take the juvenile criminal records out of the clerk of court's office. And I challenge any one of you right now to Google in Pennsylvania, what office is responsible for juvenile delinquency criminal records? And I tell you that the AI is going to come up and tell you that of the 67 counties in Pennsylvania, the clerk of court's office is responsible for the criminal juvenile records, unless you're a home rule charter county.
Which we are not.
And we are not. So, sometimes when you have friends in high places, they let you skirt around the law.
Gotcha.
So, it doesn't say that 67 counties, except for Washington County, it should say that, because that's the way it is and that's the way it goes. But right now, the way it is set up in the county of Washington, the Juvenile Probation Department is the initiator of a juvenile record. They're going to prosecute that person. They're going to be the judge, jury, and executioner. And now they're the official record keeper. So my heart breaks for any juvenile that may get in trouble in Washington County, because there is absolutely no transparency that can occur for their parents. They are completely under the reins of Washington County. And that's not the way that the structure is supposed to be set up. It's sad. It is truly, truly sad. So yes, they came into the clerk of court's office with an administrative order. And I would like to add that that day they came with that administrative order, they were able to take the files, even though the perception was that I didn't turn the files over. Oh no, the sheriff's office, along with the juvenile probation office, took them all day long, 6 hours, to completely clean out the vault. The secure documents that are very highly protected to ensure that that juvenile gets a fair chance in life. Gone. Files were going out the door. Who knows where those files were going?
Wow.
It's shameful. It is truly shameful. So in turn, because I was not even allowed to read the order, and I was immediately to be handcuffed and drugged to Judge DeSalle's chambers for a hearing without a lawyer present and any legal representation, not to mind you that, can you tell me why you're arresting me? Could you tell me why you're putting me in handcuffs? Because I was never given a criminal complaint at the magistrate's office where I had to report for a hearing. That whole process was skipped. Gone. Didn't happen. So I'm probably the only person, the only elected official in Washington County that has been put in handcuffs and never given her Miranda rights and never telling her why she's being arrested.
Wow.
Yes, but the good Lord had me go through that experience because it exposed the corruption that was happening in Washington County. And I'm happy to report that the president judge that had the poison pen that was coming after all of us Republicans when we were elected to office is no longer on the bench in that position. So there are consequences that are paid. And sometimes it takes a while to actually come to light. But there's a lot of things that are coming to light now. And as a matter of fact, we've had, within the past 13 months, 2 early 60 men who are stepping down as president judge in Washington County. Now keep in mind, these judges could be on the bench until they're 75. So, one said they were going to spend more time with their family, and then the other one said they're going to spend more time traveling. Now, when they travel out of the country or they want to spend more time with their family and they're only 62 and 63 years old, it really makes you scratch your head and think, could it have been what they did when they were on the bench? Perhaps. There's a lot of things that have been coming out. For instance, Judge DeSalle, there's federal lawsuits out there from a previous employer that is alleging that veterans in our counties were denied legal representation. And they were put in jail without having that. That is exactly what they tried to do to me. Exactly. Haul you into a courtroom without your attorney and have the sheriff's department hurry up and put you in handcuffs and then run you right over to the Washington County Jail. All for a mugshot. All for a simple mugshot. But I have to tell you, my mugshot looked really good. I mean, I'm kind of proud of that badge because it shows you just the extent of how other government officials can use government resources to come after their political opponents. Perfect example, our President Trump. The Department of Justice have attacked him. I've had the controller's office attack me. I've had the commissioner's office attack me. I've had, obviously, the judges in the courthouse attack me. So if you're being attacked this much, it has to be something that you're doing right and that they don't want you to see or speak about. So it is my duty to the taxpayers to ensure that they know exactly what's going on and that the transparency occurs. And if we have overzealous commissioners that want to eviscerate these elected officials' office, then the people need to know.
Okay, so then answer me this.
Okay.
After going through all of that, I can't even imagine, Brenda. And this is the same thing that, I think a lot of people have this question for our president. How do you step back in the ring? How do you not say, I've had enough? You know what I mean?
Yes.
I've done my part. I've
Yes.
gone through the ringer. I've done my duty.
Yes.
Let someone else carry this burden. I mean, stepping back in to run for controller at this point, how do you do that?
Well, that is a very good question. And I have to tell you that over this past year, I've dived into my faith. And it's become stronger and stronger.
Awesome.
Yes. So, in the beginning of the year, I feel that I have put an extra coat of armor on me, that the good Lord has prepared me for this position, unbeknownst to me, that my experience in government has led up to this very moment in time. So I am a dedicated servant to the county, to the Lord, and if I'm called to run for another position, it is my duty to do that. So I'm here because I can identify, I can read an audit, and I can tell you ways to improve an office efficiently. Based on my experience when I was mayor, going through the budgetary processes, dealing with the salary boards, because the salary board is a position that you're on as the controller. These are all things that I've done in the past and that I've led as a leader in the past. So even though there's trials and tribulations, you have to fight for what you believe in. And I believe our county is worth fighting for. So I'm running again because I know I have the experience, the knowledge, and the education that can take that office to a new level. And it so desperately needs, especially after 20 years of Democratic reign.
Yeah.
So I'm all in.
What did Jimmy say when you wanted to? Was he like, Brenda?
Well, it was something that happened literally very quickly. And when I woke up in the morning and I said to Jimmy, it's time. I'm running for county controller. He said to me, Brenda, let's get you elected.
He's such a good guy.
He has been my rock. He is my cornerstone in the family. He makes sure that anything that I do, I can put my whole heart in it. I can put the time into it. And he is right there with me going to events. He's right there with me going to meetings. And he wants to encourage me so he can see more improvements within our county. Because I said he was a 43-year county employee. So, yes.
He's awesome. I love to talk to Jimmy. All right, so knowing all of that now, coming into the controller's office.
Yes.
Day one, what do you want to start doing?
Well, what I've learned and from my experience in government is 20-year-plus employees unfortunately become complacent in their job over time, and that is just anywhere in the workplace. They learn very quickly what the bare minimum and requirement of the job is, and they do that, and then a lot of the other times they may be doing other things. So I first and foremost would like to improve the working environment within the office. So I would like to increase the morale. And I would like the employees to know that they have a leader who is willing to work right beside them. So I will evaluate the office for 30 days, and I will determine what appropriate changes need to be done. And that's exactly what I did with the clerk of court's office. And the respect that I got within the office was huge, because you didn't go in there and you weren't firing people. You were trying to learn the job, learn their duties, and figure out a way to cross-train employees. That was an integral part when I was the clerk of courts, because only one person knew how to do a particular job.
Okay.
Yes, and that is their job. And that's where it comes to, they become complacent. They don't go above and beyond the call of duty. So I would like to provide a good working environment for the staff. I would like to evaluate the office and work right along with the employees. Then doing that, then I can implement new internal controls that may need to be established based on what I observe. So I don't want to go in there and upset the apple cart. That's not how I am a leader. I lead by my work. And when they see you working and they see you wanting to learn the job or a new way of doing things, then they get excited.
Yeah.
They get energy back into their job again.
Yeah.
So I would like to provide that. But most importantly, I would like to use my college education and the change agent innovative ways of providing efficiency within all departments within the county. And being able to do that, then I could go back to our county commissioners to say, you can save money here because there's fraud, waste, and abuse. They then will not have to raise the taxes on the taxpayers of the County of Washington. So I plan on working
Fabulous.
with the commissioners to ensure that they know where the waste is, the abuse is, because I have to tell you that when, as I mentioned, I had 9 employees and I ended with 3. Those employees were sent over to juvenile probation, adult probation, but they didn't have enough work to do because those duties incorporated other things that involved the clerk of court's office. So literally when they got to that office, they were told to bring in puzzles and books and read your books, because once you get your job done, if there's nothing else to do, you still have to sit here till 4:30. So I'm happy to report that all of those clerk of courts employees that were stolen from the clerk of court's office and removed and put in other departments, they all left those positions, because that's not the job that they were hired for.
Yeah.
They were hired for the clerk of courts. But unfortunately, the salary board put them in positions and then told them to bring books. So those are positions within the county that the commissioners truly need to know that there's abuse there, there's waste, and let's put those employees in other departments so they can be more efficient. So I can provide beautiful ways to the commissioners to save the taxpayer money. And I'm excited about that opportunity to do that.
Yeah. So explain that just a little bit more for people. The importance of the controller's office when it comes to the finances of the county and how they're
Yes.
dealing with, all of the other different row offices.
The controller's office is the watchdog of the county.
Okay.
And they go into these other offices that are elected officials, and they do an intense audit of their books, their policies, their procedures. And they need to then come up with recommendations. And what I found that was lacking in the controller's office is once you were given that audit and said, hey, I want you to do this, there was never any follow-up during the year to say, can I help you to accomplish this, to ensure that the checks and balances are in order. So the follow-up there is something that I would like to provide to the offices after having an audit done. So then, whenever the following year, when we go back to auditing their office, they have improved their efficiencies, and their audit report is improving year after year after year, as opposed to having pages added to it.
Yeah.
And it seems to what happens over time is additional pages. And when you get an audit, you want it to be very, very thin, because
Yes.
that's when you're doing things correctly.
Yes.
Yes.
I think that would really be a step in the right direction for these other offices.
Yes, the follow-up is critical, and the attention to detail is imperative. And I can only talk about my experiences, okay? So when Jimmy retired from the county after 43 years, you have to choose which retirement option that you want with the
Okay.
county, okay? So you really have to do your due diligence to ensure that this is what you're picking. So Jimmy talked with his financial advisors and came up with his choice and submitted his paperwork to the county, and Jimmy retired.
Okay.
So you get a set amount of money that you pick, and you get that every month. And Jimmy received that set amount of money every month for 3 years. But then all of a sudden, the one next month, there was more money in his retirement check. Yeah, so at that point I'm like, Jimmy, what's going on? You signed this paperwork 3 years ago. It's set in stone what you're getting. Now you get more money in your check. So I called the controller's office and said, could you please explain this to Jimmy and I, why he is now getting more money?
Yeah.
And you know what they said? Oh, we were overtaxing him because the county has 2 sets of contributions to the pension plan, one where you contribute and one where the county contributes. And when you contribute money, a portion of the taxes are already taken out. So Jimmy had already paid taxes on 3 years worth of money that they were overcharging him for. So there was no apology, there was no, I'm calling to tell you that a pensioner in the county, we screwed up your paperwork 3 years ago. Now, if there was an audit done of the pension process, that should have been identified that someone wasn't getting their exact amount of money that they signed up for.
Right.
So when I said to the controller's office, well, does this mean that Jimmy's going to need to amend his income tax return for the past 3 years? And she said, oh, I'll have to issue you a new amended W-2 form. So immediately, I hang up the phone, call the financial advisor and say, you're not going to believe this, but we're just getting ready to get hit with a 3 years worth of tax amending our income tax return because the county controller's office didn't tell us sooner. So we had to go through the motions of filing 3 years worth of amended. But the IRS at that point was like, wait a minute here. We're talking about $850 that Jimmy was entitled to over those 3 years. And it took a whole year for the state to turn around and issue Jimmy that money because they wanted to wait until we filed his taxes again and had it as a credit for him. Hold on a minute. That's his money that he worked for 43 years. So I want to ensure that the pensioners in the county do not have to go through the same processes that a 43-year employee had. So when I say attention to detail is critical, that is attention to detail to make sure. And now politics has always been played in the controller's office. It just is what it is. I plan on removing those politics that are played. And another example, when I left office after clerk of courts, I contributed to the pension. So I was not vested, so in turn the county had to give me my money back.
Oh.
Well, that comes from the controller's office. No paperwork was ever mailed to me as a former employee, which you would think they're holding a ton of your money and that they would want to make sure that they get that back to you. No, I had to initiate a phone call and inquire about how I was going to roll my money over into my pension plan. Do you know what? They sent me a check without even asking me and took out over $10,000 worth of taxes as if I was going to cash that check and not roll it over. Hold on a minute. So there was no communication. There was no customer service. I had to mail that check back to the controller's office and re-give them the form that showed them I checked the correct box that said I'm entitled to roll this entire amount over. So I think it was 5 months after I was office, I finally received my rollover check to then invest that. those are the things that should not happen. It should not happen. I'm not the first employee that has left the county,
Right.
so they know what to do. So attention to detail and the morale needs to be improved within the office. And so I could talk about other things that where politics were played in the office, but I'm not sure how much time we have. But yes.
We could be here a while.
Yeah, we could be here a little while.
We could be here a while. Okay. What question didn't I ask that maybe I should have asked you?
Well, I think you've covered quite a bit. I feel that I'm the only candidate in this controller's race that has a master's degree, that has the governmental experience, and that has the knowledge of being a leader and a successful leader at that. I don't believe any other candidate has been an elected official. I think maybe one for a year. So it's not easy when you master and deal with the politics of Washington County.
Yeah.
There are going to be those that just don't like you because of who you date or who you're married to or who your family is or because you're outspoken, But when you prove to the taxpayers that you're in it for the people and the community and that you're engaged, I'm a volunteer in the community. I've been a board of director for a food pantry in the city of Washington for 12 years. I've been volunteering there for over 20.
That's wonderful.
Yes, I mean there's such a need for to be engaged in your community. So I don't believe any of the other candidates have a volunteer record that they could actually run on as well to say, I'm engaged, I want to better my community. So I believe that I'm the most qualified with the most experience and the most conservative fiscal responsible experience. I was always under budget in every year, even though I was dealt with a reduced budget year after year after year. But it was okay because we were still able to get the work done. And it's probably why today, currently, the clerk of courts is not afforded new employees because the commissioners know it can be done with 3 people. As long as you have 3 good people.
Yeah.
So I know he's begging for more employees, but we set the bar real high when I was there.
You made it hard.
Yeah. I mean, I don't wear high heels, but sometimes those high heels are hard to fill.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Mhm.
That's right.
Yeah,
All right.
So I guess that's what I would like to say.
Well, any parting thoughts that you want the people to remember about you, your campaign, and then we'll play the lightning round.
Okay. Well, I would like people to know that doing the right thing is a difficult thing to do. But doing the right thing is worth the risk. And I'm always willing to do the right thing. So if that means being incarcerated because I want to follow the Constitution and follow the law, and there's an overzealous judge with a poison pen, I'm going to choose the right thing. Because I know that the good Lord is with me and He'll be with me by my side.
Amen.
So thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to the people. And I ask you for your vote on May 20th for Brenda Davis. Thank you so much.
That's great, Brenda. All right, ready for lightning round?
I'm ready.
I mean, this is where the votes are really won.
Okay.
Is right here.
Perfect.
Vanilla or chocolate?
Chocolate.
My kind of girl. Okay. Spring or fall?
Spring for sure. That's when life begins.
Okay, all right. Favorite political figure? This could be from any time period. Present,
Favorite?
past.
Well, favorite has to be Donald Trump. I mean, there's no question about that.
Very good.
Ronald Reagan would come secondly. So.
Yep. All right. Your no-miss morning ritual, something you have to do every morning.
Well, interestingly enough, I thought it was a cup of coffee until just a few weeks ago. And after I went through a transformation, I realized that coffee is not a priority in my life anymore.
Really?
And I had it as a priority. That the first thing before I opened my eyes, it was making a pot of coffee.
Yeah.
And I had a half a cup this morning before I even came. And normally I would in the past I would have had 2. So, so I've changed that morning routine now, and coffee is no longer a priority for me.
Did you replace it with something?
Water.
Did you? Okay.
Water, yes.
That's me. I have to drink a glass of water first thing in the morning. All right, last question. Favorite sports team?
Oh, my Lanta. Well, okay, so you have to be a sports fan, an enthusiast, but let's see. My favorite sports team would be the Pittsburgh Steelers. Of course.
That's what I would have said
Yeah,
too.
absolutely.
We're in
The
Steeler
Steelers.
Nation right here.
For sure. I mean, yes. So that would be my favorite team. Now, do I watch? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Brenda Davis, thank you so much for sitting down
Ashley,
with us today.
thank you so much. And thank you for your leadership abilities that you're bringing to our county, because we were waiting for you for quite a long time. So we're happy to have you. Thank you for all that you're doing, and your volunteerism here in the county is admirable.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.